Hi there, it's Brother Wes with Carry and Comfort Studios, and so far, welcome back. You've probably already seen my review of Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. I had a lot of fun with this game. As you can tell, it's a gorgeous game with beautiful artwork, beautiful sound design, beautiful music. The story is beautiful, everything about it. And if you're watching this, you've probably already watched the review. And this is the playthrough from my review. And I'm very, very, very excited to dive in to show you exactly how hands-on with this game. If you remember, I did a demo of this game before, but here I've got the real life thing. I want to say thank you to Peter for providing me with this copy so I could review it. I'm very, very excited. Let me tell you a little bit about the game before we get into anything else here. So, Werewolf the Apocalypse Heart of the Forest throws you deep into a primeval wilderness in the center of modern Europe. It's where the protectors of nature wage their ancient, never-ending war against the forces of destruction. You play as Maia, who comes to Poland hoping to trace her family roots. Trying to learn more about her ancestry, she will discover her family's dark secrets and reveal hidden truths about the last wilderness of Central Europe. Visit real-world places of mystery and power, explore local legends and traditions, discover the fascinating world and history of the Polish-Belarusian borderlands. You will witness how nature clashes with technology and greed. Can it survive without our help? And for the first time ever, you and I, as you'll see here in a little bit, will be able to experience one of my favorite systems in the World of Darkness, Werewolf the Apocalypse, on your computer. Heart of the Forest adapts the mechanics of the legendary title from the World of the Darkness universe, emulating the experience of a classic role-playing session. It's an immersive narrative that can measure up to the best of mystery novels it has to offer. Beautiful, distinctive collage art that combines hand-illustrated characters with pictures of real places to inspire your imagination. And by making tough choices that will bring dramatic consequences, it will affect your character attributes, which are rage, willpower, and health. This impacts your ability to perform certain actions, as well as change the range of available choices and the presentation of the world. The game will analyze your behavior and determine what kind of werewolf you are. And this game was published by Walkabout Games. It was developed by Different Tales. It is available on Windows, Mac operating system, and Linux. The release date is October 13th, 2020, which is when you will be seeing this. It's a visual novel, adventure, RPG kind of hybrid here. It's very, very good. It's interactive, it's dark, it's atmospheric, it features werewolves. You can get it on GOG.com as well as Steam or directly from their website. I'll also have a link for their Discord. Also, I'll have links to Different Tales and Walkabout Games socials, so you can go visit them, give them a follow. And this is going to be a two-part playthrough. The first part's going to be about 2.5 hours. Second part's going to be 2.5 hours. And this is only going to be off of a whole playthrough. But just to get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty here, there's 5 different endings that come through 6 chapters of the story. There's over 200,000 unique story paths which branch at every step. It has a 120,000 word count, which is the size of a full novel today that you can find on any bookshelves in any bookstore or regular general merchandise store. 100 plus unique scenes that you see from different perspectives depending on your choices. It took 17 developers to bring this together, including 3 different writers and 8 different visual artists. And each playthrough is about up to 8 to 5 hours, and you can have a full completionist playthrough if you speed through it and you don't take your time after beating through it the first time, in about 15 hours. So it's plenty of content for a very, very, very good price as well. Not to mention, it is the first game that has been developed for Werewolf Apocalypse. It got out before Earthblood. It got out all the other ones. So I am going to stop jabberjawing here about this game, and we are going to go ahead and hop out and check out Different Tales, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. Let's do this. Oh, here we go. Excellent. I got a little bit of fade here. Fade out. Adjust yourself. Sliding. Okay, perfect. All right. So, I've already played the demo. You'll see it on the YouTube here. Something that I did appreciate about them, just wanted to just give a quick shout out already, is that the they have text delay, paragraph delay for just people that, you know, just if you want to delay faster, or or text to go faster, or text to go slower for you, best visual quality I've got on it. I'm running a very good machine, so I can get all that good artwork out. They also have accessible font. They've got open dyslexic, sans serif, and you can just have the regular sans serif font, but or the regular, just like their stylized font. For the purposes of this playthrough, and I like to do for a lot of my playthroughs because I want them to be accessible to everybody that watches them, I am going to have it for open dyslexic here, and I'm going to enable analytics for them as well. And we are going to go ahead and hop into the story. Now, I am not Polish. I'm not of Polish descent, so there might be some words that I might have trouble pronouncing or anything like that, but I'm going to try the best of my ability here. So I'm going to go ahead and break open a new game, and as you can tell, the music is phenomenal. Prologue, Premonition. It reminds me very much of like a folk horror kind of atmosphere, folk horror kind of aspect. Let me get some water before we start. This is a game about rage and how it helps us do things that we need to be done, as well as things that we later regret. Sometimes both. How do you feel about that? Great, I'm always angry. I'm okay with anger when it's useful. Well, I prefer to think before I act. I'm okay with anger when it's useful. Oh, we're starting with 3 dots of rage. Your rage is balanced. So you're the critical and analytical type. That's okay. There's no right path here. Just your decisions and their consequences. Let's start already. I get it. My decisions need to be fair and just. Let's just follow the path and see where it takes us. I get it. Analytical. Already I can tell artwork is amazing, phenomenal. The forest. The woods are full of stars. They flicker. Come closer. Run away. They want me to chase them. To play hide and seek. I hunt. I observe. I hide. And let me go ahead and check here. So they have a character sheet here. You don't know your name yet. You know your info. Personality assessment. And this is where we're kind of figuring out this premonition. Is kind of figuring out our character. Mind and body. Condition healthy. I love the whole aspect of this. And it's Krinos. They flicker. Come closer. Run away. They want me to chase them. To play hide and seek. I watch as they dance around the tree trunks. Float up on the gusts of wind that shiver through the branches. Disappear among the leaves. There are words in their dance, but I don't understand them. Not yet. Then they bunch up and fly toward me like an arrow, rushing down. They're soon upon me. But just before the spear of light pierces my breast, they disappear and the dark of the night returns. Due to balanced anger? In the darkness, I feel the tangled roots of stories keeping the forest alive, and I hear the spirits asking me to judge the enemy. I open my eyes, and then I wake up. Cold and alone. Confused, I open my eyes. The forest around me is thick and dark and reeks of decay to such an extent that it's hard to breathe. I recognize this forest. I know this place. I've been dreaming about this forest since I was a child. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly in dark-leaved ivy, are covered in ripples of lichen where the vines haven't taken a hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at their base are overrun with nettles. The fungi radiate with a ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark sponge-like mushrooms cling to the fallen trees. I try to breathe. I'm cold. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. I can't shake the feeling that something died nearby. I look down and I see my hands covered in a dark substance. I'm naked. A sticky, glistening film of liquid is clinging to my skin. I can feel it on my face, in my hair. Blood. What's happening? This can't be real. I'm alert. This can't be real. It all feels like a dream. With the twigs and stones hurting my feet seem so real. I pinch myself, but I don't wake up. I just see more clearly. Whose blood is this? Did I kill someone? There's a severed head right in front of me. Some choices are hard to make and they strain your willpower. I wince and touch it. I'm gonna be sick. I'm gonna be sick. I lose rage. God, I love this artwork. So the artwork was influenced by the artist, the art from Sandman. A lot of that kind of combination of photographic realness with the abstract, dark abstract around it, surrealism around it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. The face is contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open, the tongue stuck out. It's obscene. I feel bile rising in my throat. I start to retch, and then the eyes open in the darkness. The enemy. Who is it? I can see their silhouettes, shades of jet black against the darkness. They reek of metal and acid and oil and money. Massive creatures, some with mandibles, some with spidery legs. Their faceted eyes burn like small industrial furnaces. I look at them. Something wakes inside my chest. And low range. Delight. They see me as prey, and I'm delighted by their stupidity. I get up and start to run. I make sure to catch my foot on a gnarled root and stumble. They follow, and I lead them toward my friends, waiting in the trees, ready for the ambush. I bite my lip to hold back the laughter. In a moment of clarity, I almost understand what the Force wants from me. And then I wake up. Excellent. Excellent. Chapter 1, Arrival. Maia Borodich. So there's been an update to the character sheet. Maia Borodich, age 24, American student. Updated analytical, spiritual, and cunning. Excellent, excellent. I love that. June 20th, the morning time. It's summer already. Health is your life force. Willpower is full of points that you spend to perform. Maia! Maia! Maia, wake up! I jerked upright. My neck was stiff and the movement sent a sudden sharp wave of pain through my body. I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was in a bus. The sun streaming through the windows is making it hard to see. The girl next to me was touching my shoulder, disturbed. I snapped at her. What happened? Minus willpower. I snapped at her. I like it's kind of like in the past tense, like it's telling a story. Anya neutral. I'm okay. I snapped, more harshly than I intended. When your rage is high, you might say and do things you later regret. She looked at me, hurt. You were laughing, like maniacally? I blinked. The memory of the dream was still there, and the taste of blood in my mouth. I was glad I wasn't alone. Thank you for coming with me, I said. The girl next to me smiled. I think we're almost there. Her name was Anya. We met a couple of weeks earlier on the orientation day. She was from Norway, a tall, broad-shouldered, calm person who wore her long hair in braids. Somehow I had managed to talk her into this crazy field trip across the land of my ancestors. We were there to study medicine. Honey was neutral. She looked content. Anya reached into her backpack and took out 2 apples. Are you excited to finally be here? She asked as she tossed me one. Yeah, I said, biting into my apple. It was sweet, but a little soft. I did some searching, she said from over her phone, and this place is amazing. The last primordial forest in Europe. This trip was my idea. Our summer language course was starting in a few weeks, and I'd managed to talk Anya into skipping the tours of concentration camps and old churches and visiting, and let's see here if I can pronounce this real quick. I want to be able to... Białowieża. Białowieża National Park with me instead. So far, it's beautiful, she said, her eyes smiling. But why are we here again? And I will get with the pronunciation of that, and I will definitely make sure and confirm that I am pronouncing that correctly. Why were we there? There being, by the way, oh, they provided pronunciation. You guys are so fucking awesome. Okay, Białowieża. Białowieża. Yeah, Białowieża. Okay, Białowieża is a village in Poland's Podlasie province, in the middle of Białowieża forest for which it is named. There being a Białowieża, a small village in northeast Poland near the border with Belarus. It was famous for its national park, the very last European bison, and according to a quick web search, occasional tensions between far-right troublemakers and the local Belarusian community. The most honest answer would have been, because I've been dreaming about the forest in Białowieża since I can remember. But people didn't understand when I said things like that. I looked in her eyes. I kept it simple so I wouldn't freak her out. I told her as much as I could. I told her everything. Let's drop that willpower. Uno mas. It's complicated. Let's update it. I've always had these dreams where I'm in this forest and it speaks to me, I said hesitantly. I'm not sure why, but I feel like I'm supposed to be here. Only my grandfather understood the dreams. Respect the forest, he would say, and pay attention to your dreams. It was all I got from that part of the family before my mom took me, ran away, and cut off all contact with my dad. I instantly regretted saying anything. I waited for her to respond. Anya was silent for a long time. Wow, that's intense. She looked at me with what seemed like respect. I wouldn't dare tell anyone a story like that. I think it's great that you come from such a magical place. She smiled. The last ancient forest in Europe? Thousands of years old? I wasn't sure if I was fond of that magic, but it was hard to ignore. That was precisely why I needed to do something. Anything about my future. That damn forest and my weird-ass family. I had a clear goal in mind. I wasn't there by mistake. I'd planned this trip for months with a clear goal in mind. To face the forest, I had to learn the truth about my roots. I had to figure out my destiny. I had to learn the truth about my roots. Goal, mystery. Learn your family history. My grandfather's stories, the secrets, my mother running away, there was a mystery in my past. It was time I uncovered the truth about who I was. But honestly, I had no idea what to expect. Welcome home. Białowieża looked like an overexposed photo of a village with the contrast turned all the way up. Heat was pouring from the cloudless sky, scorching the earth, the trees, the grass, the wooden houses, the fences. Everything looked slightly past its best, weary, worn out. Everything except the shadows. They were sharp, as though they were freshly printed with the darkest of inks. And they moved. For a second, I could have sworn they'd moved, but then I realized it was just a black cat walking down the sidewalk. When it saw me, it stopped in its tracks. I decided to ignore it. I watched it with suspicion. I tried to pet it. Here, kitty kitty, I said, squatting and reaching toward the cat. It didn't react, instead looking me dead in the eyes, judging me. Hey, Maia? Anya said, looking at me surprised. Didn't you say your friend would be waiting for us? But he wasn't there, and the cat was still staring at me. Let's go, Anya put on her backpack. I'm tired, and I really need to find a toilet. For a moment, I was tempted to just get out of the sun and worry about my missing friend later. Disappointed, I left, but the meeting was just too important. So during the demo, I hit disappointed, I left, and it took me on a different path. I'm going to, just because I know how that went, you can see it earlier, I'm going to go with, but the meeting was just too important. Let's just wait a little longer, I said. I don't have his number, and we really need to meet up with him. His name was Bartek. I'd met him online while researching Białowieża. The man knew everything there was to know about local history. I asked him to check if anyone in town remembers my grandparents. I hope he's fine something. I really need to pee. Anya said it was like a 5-year-old and not a very bright one. I wasn't going anywhere. I made my best puppy dog eyes. I caved. I made my best puppy dog eyes. Just wait a few minutes longer. Please. Pretty please. I made my best puppy dog eyes. It's important. The things we do for friends. Anya looked around to see if anyone was coming, and then made a beeline for the nearest bushes. Watch my backpack, and you owe me. So I waited, and the creepy cat waited with me. Bartek was 15 minutes late, flustered and apologetic. It was his dad's company, he explained while catching his breath. He had to help him out with some paperwork. I introduced them. Bartek said that. Anya, this is Bartek. I made the introductions. Bartek, this is Anya. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Bartek flashed his teeth. Sorry I'm late. My dad always needs help with his business. Doesn't take no for an answer. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had freckles all over his face. Come on, I'll take you to your place. His accent was broad and very Eastern European. I flooded him with questions. Anya liked him. I caught him looking at me. So I like how you're kind of informing the story with using like past tense. Like you're telling a story and you're informing in it. I really do dig that. Anya liked him. Anya took an immediate liking to him, I could tell. I always could smell romance in the air. We walked along the only street in the village, slowly making our way towards the outskirts. The trees were growing denser, their scent becoming richer and more pronounced. I took a deep breath. So, did you manage to trace the name I gave you? I asked. Bartek shook his head. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sorry. He was avoiding my eyes. A trickle of sweat ran down his temple. He was clearly lying to me, but why? Come on, man, I said. You wrote to me that you'd found something, but he just clammed up. You know what? I think you should drop it. I stopped and unleashed all my trauma. I felt hurt. He was scared of something. I turned to Bartek and touched his arm. What's eating at you, man? He shrugged and shook his head. You can tell us, Anya added gently. I taunted him a bit. I gave him time. I don't want to lose any more willpower. What are you afraid of? I spread my arms. Little old me? The game tracks your decisions on how Maia approaches problems. They will accumulate and gradually reveal what kind of person she is, deep in her heart. The story changes to reflect Maia's personality. Well, he brushed his forehead with the back of his hand. I did ask. I started with the old people here. I told them that my friend from the States was looking for her roots and wanted to know about the place her family came from. You know the drill. At first, people were very, receptive. I waited for the other shoe to drop, and then I mentioned your name. He shook his head. Started to lose my temper. I urged him to continue. I needed a moment to calm down. We walked in silence for a long time. Finally, I nodded, and he continued the story. One of the old men here told me to go to hell. The other spat on the ground, and his wife crossed herself. For a moment, he looked younger and smaller, and then my own grandmother told me to stop asking. She said something else as well. I tensed up. What? I asked. She told me to pray for you. Suddenly, the sweet golden afternoon wasn't so sweet and golden now anymore. Who was I? Felt shivers run down my spine. I laughed. Nicely done! I punched his arm and laughed. I almost thought you were scared of me. Bartek smiled awkwardly. Yeah, it was just old wives' tales. Look at me. I winked at him. Do I look like the big bad wolf to you? We walked in silence, but my mind was in overdrive. People didn't want to talk, and that could only mean one thing. I was on the right track. That gains a willpower, because people were scared of my family. So every time you complete a goal, you gain willpower. So that's a great system. Great system that is right in line with Werewolf the Apocalypse. My pulse quickened, and I tensed up like a hound that smelled blood. I was on the right track. Every time you learn to do something significant that brings you closer to your goal, you regain willpower. I said. Let me just make sure. Again, Bia Waveza had a few hotels and hostels, but the preferred form of accommodation was bed and breakfasts. That's where we stayed. I found one that was nice, clean, and that had good reviews. We had a room on the second floor with a huge window and a great view of the forest. We dropped off our stuff, and soon we were ready to head out again. The day was hot, and we were young and restless. Will you show us around? Anya smiled at Bartek. Sure. What do you want to see? Before you go, check out your character sheet. Look for it in the upper right corner of the screen. You can find a load of useful info about Maia, her background, personality, goals, and so on there. You can also check who your friends and who your enemies are. Bia Wolveza was a quaint tourist town. Let's see. Oh, and it's got some new stuff there. So it's got a goal, willpower, so it's got notes and stuff like that. Also your relationships. Excellent. But I had other things in mind. Lay of the land. I had a clear goal in mind. My family was integral to sound the forest. I had to uncover my roots. Anya and Bartek went with you. The town my ancestors lived in, the forest I dreamed about. Let's go to the forest I dreamed. The town my ancestors lived in. I'll walk around the village. We walked through the village, bathed in the sharp rays of the summer sun. It was a lazy afternoon, disturbed only by the occasional passing car throwing up clouds of dust that hung in the air long after the vehicle was gone. Anya was walking close to Bartek, asking him about every little detail in the village. People were relaxing or working in their yards. Dogs were barking, and every cat we passed froze to look at us. Loading. People seemed quite friendly, though. Some of them smiled at us as we passed by, and every once in a while we stopped for some small talk with people who knew Bartek. I expected fewer stares. The cats behaved strangely. It was just a tourist village. The cats behaved strangely. What's with the cats? I asked as we passed a tabby who stopped in the middle of the sidewalk to meow at us. I don't know. They're cats? Maybe they wanted to make up the village's manners? Bartek shrugged. You know, some people are wary of newcomers. Xenophobic jerks. I was curious why. Yeah, tourists can be assholes. What's wrong with them? I threw up my hands in the air. I see a familiar face and immediately assume someone's here to destroy their lifestyle? I think it's more nuanced than that. Bartek scratched his neck, embarrassed by the topic. There's a small conflict around the forest, you know. It's attracting some weird people. Activists, reporters, bored rich kids, he said as though his dad didn't own multiple businesses. People like that, and they're getting on the locals' nerves. I noticed Anya frowning. Fair enough. Anya looked skeptical. I looked up the conflict up online, she said, and it didn't look so small. It looked pretty important, actually. For a moment, Bartek looked like he was lost for words. Well, you're not one of those crazies, and you're like, almost local. He smiled. So what would you like to see in the village of your ancestors? He spread his arms as if to show me all the splendor the village had to offer. What do you suggest? The village. Cats were watching my every move as well as wandered the streets. So the old cemetery, family graves, mystery of the past, abandoned railway, lost hope, strange dreams, village center, new friends, hidden tensions. Oh, goodness gracious. Come on, Wes. Have to turn my phone down. Let's do family, graves, and mysteries past. This old cemetery. I love the artwork. I love the colors in it. I love it. I love it how it looks. Matters of the soul. So we have quite a few churches here, Bartek explained as we walked down the road. 2 Orthodox, 1 Catholic, and even 1 Baptist church, he said, as though it were something uncommon. Was there a synagogue? It seemed like a lot of churches, so I asked about it. And the synagogue? I knew a part of my mom's family was Jewish. He shifted his weight uncomfortably. There aren't any Jews here anymore. Any Lutheran churches? Asked Anya. I don't think so. Bartek shook his head as he led us to a small wooden church surrounded by a cemetery. Anyway, even though we have all these churches, there's only one cemetery. The church was Orthodox, but the graves were a mishmash of styles and faiths. Catholic, Orthodox, atheists, everyone resting together. Bartek looked like he didn't approve. This place reminded me of a forest. There was something poetic about it. I'm gonna keep on swapping back and forth between rage. That's a nice sentiment. There's something poetic about everyone meeting in the same place when they die. Bartek smiled. There is, isn't it? He looked at the cemetery, and for a moment he seemed lost in his thoughts. All of my family lies here, he said. I mean, the ones that are dead. Hey, what do you think? What do you think happens when you die? I hope for something fair. For something fair, you left an echo. I didn't know. Cunning. I don't really know, I laughed. I mean, I feel like there is something more, you know? But I don't think any religion really got it right. My mother raised me as an atheist, so I just try to live and have fun. Bartek nodded. I understand. Sometimes I am not very sure either. He looked over the cemetery fence. Well, anyway, this is it. The spiritual heart of Białowieża. We can go see something else if you like. So that's where we stood. I wanted to go in, and he was clearly scared to let me enter the cemetery. Was he kidding? I just went in. Are you kidding me? I didn't come here to look at something. I came to look for something. And we're going to look. Bartek shifted uncomfortably. I don't know if that's a good idea. But why? What? Why? I turned to him, surprised. I mean, I told you. People have weird reactions. Maybe it's better to leave it alone? So what are we waiting for? Anya smiled at him. He mumbled something and led us through the labyrinth of graves to the far end of the cemetery. We continued. The walkways were narrow, and I could tell Bartek was having a hard time finding the way. It wasn't that he was stalling, he just genuinely wasn't sure where to go, especially when we got to the older part of the cemetery. At some point we saw a woman, tall, broad-shouldered, and long-legged, with gray dreadlocks pinned to the crown of her head. She must have been in her late 40s or early 50s. She was marching through the walkways with a fury in her eyes. Bartek quickly stepped between the graves to get out of her way. I walked on, ignoring her. I didn't move. I did the same. I followed his lead. I think the women didn't even notice us. Lost in thoughts and anger, Bartek looked at her with a mixture of fear and disdain. I asked Bartek about her. Olga. Who was that? I asked, watching the woman leave. Bartek winced. Oh, that's Olga. She's a local activist. She left Białowieża when she was 18 or something and returned a few years back with the notion that she was going to change this place. We continued to the far corner of the cemetery. There, seemingly forgotten, covered in moss, was a lonely grave. It was damaged. The tombstone was broken, deliberately. Someone had obviously smashed it with a hammer. The name was half erased. The plaque was also damaged. Someone had tried to scratch out the name, but the letters were still visible. There was a circle around the grave. There was a circle of coarse salt around the grave. I'm sorry. Bartek sighed. I didn't want you to see that. I needed to know who did this. Was it because of me? I looked around carefully. Who did this? I asked, trying to keep my cool. I don't know. And Anya squatted and looked at the plaque. I can't read it. The letters are all wrong. She glanced at Bartek. Is it Russian? Belarusian. The same letters, different language, he explained. There were a lot of them here before the war. I looked at Bartek, hoping for some context. Bartek put his hands in his pockets. So, you don't know anything about your dad's side of the family? He asked me cautiously. Whatever happened at least 70 years ago. And someone still remembers. I don't know them. My mom left my dad when I was just a kid, so I don't remember much, I admitted. And she kept me away from them. She doesn't even know I'm here. I didn't tell her that I was visiting Białowieża. Maybe he was abusive? Said Anya carefully. Perhaps she wanted to protect you. Yeah, I guess. There wasn't much left to do. I looked at the grave. I looked at the grave for the last time. My family's name looked strange written in the unfamiliar Belarusian letters. As we were leaving, I was thinking. I was on to something. Full willpower. Nice. My family grave had been vandalized. There was something unnatural about my family, and me coming to Białowieża had stirred some old demons. I just had to find out what my ancestors were doing there, who they were. With that thought, I left the cemetery. Białowieża. The day was hot and beautiful, yet I couldn't stop thinking about the devastating grade. So, village center, lost hope, strange dreams. Let's go to the village center. Let me get some water before we start this. This is such a nice village, exclaimed Anya as we walked along the quiet street. Nothing moved. The heat was stifling. It was really quaint. I enjoyed the walk. I like how peaceful it is, I admitted. You can finally slow down and just unwind. I was thirsty. Let's get something to drink. I proposed. I'm parched. The local store was a large mini-mart with all kinds of goods, from beer and vegetables to notebooks and pens. There was a bench near the entrance, and on it were a few local drunks. They looked colorful, so I waved at them as we passed. One of them wolf whistled, and Bartek winced. I assessed the threat. They were creepy. They were an easy target for a joke or two. Yeah. What's up that cunning? Who are you? I laughed at him. The local bums of the year? You must be so proud. "Yeah, he sure did," one of them shouted back. "Have some respect." "Oh, I'm so sorry," I said with faint sympathy. "Did you manage to lose that competition as well?" For a moment of tense silence, they burst into laughter. We went and spent some time inside browsing the Latvian, Lithuanian, and Belarusian goods. Why was there almost nothing Polish here? And who in their right mind drinks coriander soda? I was putting the soda back on the shelf when we heard a commotion coming from outside. Loud voices. Some slurs, some curses, and a clear, mockingly polite, "I'm so sorry, darlings. I don't understand. Do you like my skirt?" "Oh, fuck," Bartek mumbled under his breath. I looked outside. There was someone standing next to the drunkard's bench. They were definitely not local. The person was old? Not helpless granny old, but old with deep wrinkles and a narrow mouth. They had the unisex grace of a tired heroin-preserved rockman. Their shoulder-length disheveled hair completed the look. I totally dug their style. They looked out of place. Totally dug their style. They had a peculiar style, fashion that you rarely see, even in the US. It looked great on them. They had a clean shave and eyes highlighted with eyeliner. Their nails were painted in bright blue. They wore heavy army boots, an outrageously red skirt, a tank top, and lots of leather jewelry. On their bag, there were pins, lots of pins, all kinds of LGBTQA+ flags, anarchist and pacifist symbols, and I think some German band stripes. Mom would have told me to stay out of it. I approached the foreigner. Kim, neutral. I smiled, and ignoring the men, approached the foreigner. "Hi, I'm Maia. I just got here," I said. They looked at me with a serene smile. "Nice to meet you, Maia," they said with an unmistakable German accent. "I'm Kim." I pointed at the drunks. We started talking. I suggested that we should leave.
Start talking.
"What brings you here?" I asked. "In Biovesa, I mean. I came to see the forest and to protect it." They sounded deadly serious. "Me and my friends heard about what's happening here, and we decided to come and help." The men on the bench were looking at us grimly. "Hey!" someone said suddenly from behind our backs. Kim smiled, and the men on the bench stiffened. I turned around. The woman approaching us had the longest, thickest braids I've ever seen, as thick as my arm. There was something faintly Asian about her facial features, and the men on the bench looked at her with deference. "You should stop drinking that moonshine. It makes you pick fights you can't win," she said. She looked ferocious. And the drunks started explaining themselves. "But look at this, Elzunia," said one of them, gesturing toward us. "For the last fucking time, the name's Lisa." She pronounced it Lisa. "And this is my friend. You're to leave them alone, got it?" Her Polish sounded weird, more melodic, or maybe mellower, even when she cursed. The drunkard mumbled and went back to drinking. "Thanks, Lisa," Kim said in English. "You shouldn't have." "Oh, but I wanted to." I asked who she was. How did she command so much respect? "Why did they listen to you?" I asked. She turned to me and shrugged with just a hint of a smile. "Oh, they have their reasons." She looked me up and down. "And who would you be?" "This is Maia," smiled Kim. "She's also not from here." "Oh, are you here to protest the logging?" She raised her eyebrows. "Or just a tourist?" Why were they logging the national park? What did she do? So something that's cool is that this actually is set around the same time as a great many number of protests that happened in this area in 2016 and 2017 when there were companies coming in and logging the national forest. And this being one of the bisons of Europe, one of the last great like forests in Europe, a lot of people took offense to that. I would have taken offense to that. I mean, it's like somebody coming here to America and trying to ravage against the Yellowstone, or what's currently happening in a lot of Native American lands that's already happened before, and it's happening now currently with people trying to come through and set up whaling and fracking and things like that. So it's really cool for them to set this around and ground it within reality around this time, and like in a very tumultuous time in the area. Let's see here. Wait, isn't this place like a national park? I asked. Why are they logging here? You'd think they'd leave the oldest forest on the continent, the beating heart of it alone, wouldn't you? She looked at me with a grim expression. There's illegal logging here, Anya chipped in. Wood is money, and there's plenty of wood in this forest. Suddenly, a feeling rushed over me. I was burning. I couldn't see the forest from here, but suddenly I felt very aware of its presence. I also felt something else deep in my stomach spreading through my veins. Anger, like a wave of heat coming from the heart of the dark ancient forest. A word appeared in my mind, a strange one, that was neither Polish nor English. Kalgira. Lisa looked at me in the eyes and spat on the ground. I'd eat those greedy bastards alive. I noticed Kim watching me. I felt like I was being watched. When I looked up, I saw Kim observing me with a curious expression. What did they want? They knew what had happened to me. They were hiding something. I looked at them and realized they were much more than they first seemed. Under their colorful attire looked something else, something primal. Why are you looking at me like that? I asked. I know you have strange dreams, they whispered. I suspect the forest is reaching out to you. They leaned closer to me. It runs in your blood. The words were like a punch to the gut. Trust me, I know. Who was I? Who am I? I asked quietly. You see things as they are, they said, looking me in the eyes. You'll figure it out. Suddenly I felt confident. No, so I lost willpower, got willpower back. I wasn't making that up. There was something strange in my family history, and there were people who knew what was going on. Before I could ask more, Anya and Bartek approached, and Kim shook their head, silencing me. Meet us tomorrow at the logging site. They blew me a kiss and put their arm around Lisa, and walked away. We decided to leave as well. Kept looking over my shoulder, but no one was following us. Lost hope, strange dreams of the abandoned railway. Trainspotting. Bartek wants to show us the most picturesque spots in the area, said Anya. Maybe that's not the right word, he said, frowning. Well, it's not like that beautiful, but it has, you'll know, an atmosphere, a climate. Ambiance? Ambiance? Anya said at the same moment as I, and we laughed. Ambiance! Bartek smiled, visibly relieved. I meant ambiance. We ended up on some abandoned tracks. I love abandoned rail tracks. We soon left the village behind and ended up on some abandoned railway tracks. So this is where the magic happens. I grinned, pointing at the empty bottles and used condoms strewn along the tracks. But with the slow winding river a stone's throw away and the long drooping branches of the old tree shading the unused railway, that place really was picturesque. The bees buzzed around us, the birds sang like there was no tomorrow, and the fragrance of herbs hung thick in the air. My head was spinning. I remembered a song, Why Was the Track Abandoned? It all felt unreal. I remembered a song, Why Was the Track Abandoned? It all felt unreal. I remembered a song. Seems like a good answer. Inspiring. As we were walking and enjoying the sun, a half-forgotten song came back to me. I must have heard it as a child and it stuck with me. I didn't understand the words, but the melody seemed fitting for the occasion. I started humming it. I tried to remember the words. I reached deep in my memory and found the words. They didn't quite sound Polish, and I almost understood what they meant, but the song was beautiful, and I soon was singing out loud. Wow, Bartek laughed nervously. Nice Belarusian, but, you know, some people don't approve of it. Then I heard another voice joining mine. When we entered the dense copse, we noticed a woman standing among the trees. She was the one singing. It was Lisa. Hello, Bartek, she said. How did she get here? How'd you get here so fast? I couldn't help but ask. There are shortcuts. She didn't elaborate. Hello, Elizabeta Danilovna, answered Bartek. I could hear something in his voice. Was it fear? Respect? Anger? I couldn't place it. She smiled. Do you mind if I join you? She asked. I'd rather walk alone. I noticed Bartek getting tense. Sure, I didn't mind. So what's the story with you two? I asked Bartek. She's from around here. He shook his head. But she helps with the protests. You know, Lisa turned to me, the protest against the logging that his father so eagerly promotes? Bartek winced and snapped, I guess. Sorry, shouldn't we coexist with the forest? That means taking what we need to survive, just as everything does. 6,000 trucks of wood isn't taking what you need, kid. He threw me a glance, looking for help. People need to have jobs. She had a point. Don't look at me, Bartek. I think it's barbaric. I wasn't about to beat around the bush. If it was about local action, there wouldn't be a problem, Anya chimed in, but it isn't. Giant corporations are at work here with heavy machinery. Ask your friend about his father's money and his clients, Lisa shrugged. Bartek stormed away. I shrugged and followed him. Lisa followed me. We walked the narrow path. The path was too narrow for all of us to walk together, so at some point I found myself walking with Lisa. She would squat from time to time and collect some herbs. So you're looking for your roots, she said after a while. Why? I needed to know the whole story. I couldn't resist a mystery. I had dreams. I couldn't resist a mystery. My mom is hiding something from me, I answered, and I can't resist a mystery. Sit down with me. She nestled among the roots of an old tree, reaching into her basket and took out a blunt. Let's have a smoke and I'll tell you a story. She noticed when I hesitated. You need to hear it. I took the blunt. I sat down. Tangled roots. Excellent. So we're going to get a nice little story. Lisa let out a cloud of smoke and started talking. From what I've learned from Bartek's grandma, you're asking the wrong questions about the wrong people. I decided to cut to the chase. Why shouldn't I be asking about my family? Her voice was so soothing. Yeah, why shouldn't I be asking? I was asking about my family. From what I learned from Bartek's grandma, okay. I was asking about my family, I pointed out. But not the right branch of the family, she said. Your grandfather wasn't from this village. This is a tainted land, girl, she continued. So much blood was spilled that Puzeza almost lost her mind. Puzeza? Puzeza was one of those words for forest. Polish had lots of those. She used it in a weird way. Why do you call the forest Puzeza? Isn't, Los? Is that Los? Los the right word? I call her Puzeza because it's her proper name. She huffed. Los is to Puzeza what dog is to a wolf. Domesticated, enslaved, used. Puzeza is the primeval forest, one untouched by humans, primal, strong, and feared. There was admiration in her voice, and I realized the words sounded like the rustle of leaves like the wind. Oh, so it's not Puzeza, it's, Pusha. 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 As I was telling you, Pusha almost went mad. And it's not wise to wait for those spirits, especially not now. I wasn't afraid to stir up memories. Do you mean the spirits of the past? I shrugged. I'm not afraid to stir up some memories. She looked at me with those uncanny eyes. Her gaze was almost unbearable, hard with anger, smoldering somewhere deep within it. Ready to jump in my throat, and then suddenly something changed. Lisa sighed heavily. You have no idea, do you? About what? What do I mean? What do you mean? I asked. So you have no idea who you are, she stated. Nobody told you what it was like here during the war and after it. Her eyes lost focus as though she was looking at something only she could see. In 1939, when the war broke out, first came the Germans, and then the Russians. You know, they actually worked together. Stalin never forgot that he was beaten by the Poles in 1920. She shot me a glance. I nodded politely. I didn't really care, but I nodded politely. Oh, you have no idea what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter, really. She took a drag. Anyway, many millions of lives later, Stalin and Hitler stopped sleeping together, so to speak. And the Germans came. And then the Russians again. And then there were the forest soldiers. The forest part got my attention. I listened, holding my breath. I was hanging on to her every word. They started as Polish soldiers, but then the war ended and they became guerrillas to fight the Russian occupation. Then they ended up as desperate bandits, she sighed. For the people who lived here, they were all the same. Germans, Russians, forest soldiers. They killed, they maimed, they tortured and burned villages. Didn't matter what language they spoke. She looked sad. I'm sorry, I touched her arm. I didn't know it was also tangled. My great-grandparents were from here, she sighed. After the war, there were some changes, and my whole family was sent to Siberia to die. My grandmother was the only one who survived. She met the Buryat shaman, and here I am. But your story is tangled with all of this. She looked straight at me. Have you ever wondered what your grandfather did during the war? Then the weed hit me. And of course, that was the moment when the weed finally hit. The stuff was powerful, and for a moment I wondered if she hadn't spiked it. Tried to stay focused. What has she done? I focused and understood that the strange feeling came from within. It was like a long-forgotten dream, like an ancient memory suddenly brought to life. I let it in. We were sitting around the fire, deep in the pushcha. They knew the rules, and they decided to break them, I say, and the others nodded their heads. We have to react or they'll stop respecting us. That's what the forest taught me. That is what the forest has taught me. Be what you are. Show no weakness. Do what you have to do. Tomorrow we're going to burn a village. Wolves gather in the darkness, waiting for the feast. Then the vision ends. I like how the artwork on the side here has gotten very, very hazy. When I came to my senses, Lisa was still looking at me. Right over her head. If I understood what you're saying, I looked at her. Something from my family's past casts a shadow on my future. She shrugged. I told you everything I know. If you want more, talk to my girlfriend. We'll be at the logging site tomorrow. Yeah, good idea. My grandfather was a forest soldier. Yep, makes sense as to why people would hate the name. I will, I said. Now I finally knew who and what to ask. There you are, Bartek waved at me. I thought I'd lost you. I said my goodbyes to Lisa, and we went back. The bison statues were watching me with their creepy painted eyes as though they knew me. We called it a day and went back. The first evening. The B&B was quaint. I left Anya and Bartek outside. They looked like they needed some time alone to say their goodbyes. When I got out of the shower, Anya was back, smiling and a little flustered. What a day, she smiled. So what do you think? I made a quick mental inventory of everything that had happened that day. They were cutting down the forest. I remember the scene at the shop. I mentioned the graveyard. I told her what happened when I talked to Lisa. So, the obvious one. I can't believe they're logging here. I shook my head. Isn't the forest on a UNESCO list or something? Yeah, I know. I want to check out this protest people were talking about. Maybe we could go there tomorrow? I mentioned the graveyard. What happened here that people are still vandalizing my family's grave? What did my grandfather do? She put her hand on my shoulder. Whatever it was, it's not your fault. It wasn't, but it could be my responsibility. Remember the scene at the shop. Remember the shop? Tension seemed almost unnatural. A few words more and it would be a regular fight. Maybe they just envied Kim's style. Anya tried to joke, but she seemed worried. I told her about what happened when I talked with Lisa. Something weird happened when I was talking with Lisa. I think it was her joint, but I saw some things. It looked like something from the past. Like, from your past? For a second, I searched for words to explain it to her, but I couldn't really. I think it was my grandpa? It's hard to say, but it sure was weird. I shrugged, ending the topic. I didn't feel like talking anymore. You know what? I'm seriously tired. Let's call it a day, shall we? Soon we were both in our beds, ready to sleep. I lay in my bed for some time, trying to make some sense out of everything that I had learned and experienced that day. The gibbous moon was shining through the window. A gentle wind was blowing. When I closed my eyes, I could still see the weird vision I had that day. My roots were here. I could feel them, almost touch them, and they were reaching to me. I felt I was getting closer. I was closer to getting my answers. Should go see the logging protest. I felt that the answers I was looking for were within my reach. I just had to go and see the logging protest, meet the right people, and make them talk. After a long while, all these thoughts became blurry. They slowly started to turn into pictures, sounds, and colors. I drifted off. A night in the woods. In a big city, old men sit in leather chairs, lazily enjoying their ever-growing wealth. They watch by a Waveza on flickering screens. They watch me. My senses are heightened. I see the moon, cutting the sky in half. I am a seed, I am a weapon, I am a cub. I am a wolf cub, like the ones my grandfather told me about. I will grow, my fangs will become sharper. I will taste blood. I feel a pull and I surrender to it. I run toward a clearing. There are piles of fresh corpses of people who died too young, skinned and mutilated. Their loved ones stand around them, grieving, unable to do anything, waiting. And suddenly there are just trees and tree trunks. I howl, I look around, I weep. Howl. I look at the moon and I howl. The trees are dead and I'm the only one left to sing their story. There's a stench in the air like meat rotting in acid, something worse. I feel the monstrous army. Their mandibles are whirling chainsaws. Their long metal arms are wrapped with black pipes that look like glistening intestines. Their smell is vile. They wait, unmoving. I charge at them. I turn to the forest for answers. I pay my respects to the dead. I charge at them. I try to breathe through my mouth as I run toward the machines. I hit and kick them blindly. Screaming at the top of my lungs, and in my own screams, I hear strange whispers. They tell me to look at the sky. There, between the stars, two shapes circle each other. An old sad wolf with gray hair and a white weasel. They keep their eyes on one another and they continue their dance, suspicious but not hostile. We need to fight the enemy. The awful rotting stench, I know that much. But how can we do that when we don't trust each other? They stop. They look at me in the clearing. I jump toward them. I reprimand them. Pusha. Stop it! You've wasted enough time. Once again, I don't recognize the words, but I understand. They've come down to me, and their voice is the voice of the Pusha. Welcome back. You've been away for too long a time. I wake up. Alright, alright, alright. Start the chapter. So chapter 2, logging. Excellent, excellent. Let me get some more water here. The day after. The next morning was full of sunshine and birdsong. I could smell the heat of the afternoon building, those long, honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet. But it was crisp and pleasant now. I got up. Let me see my character sheet real quick. So inspiring. I haven't had brave go up yet. Analytical, spiritual, and cunning. I'm surprised I haven't had brave go up though. Healthy mind. People were scared of my family, scared to destroy my family grave. My grandfather was a forest soldier after World War II, and I'm afraid that he did something terrible at the time. People protesting? Oh, goodness. People protesting the logging clearly knew something about my family. I should go and talk to them. I sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I felt angry. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somewhere in my chest, and it felt like a tiny merry-go-round gaining speed. There was the dream. Then I remembered the dream, the clearing, the animals in the night sky waiting for me. I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya joined you. It's in the morning. We were halfway through the forest when I realized we were walking towards the logging site. Protests, activists, answers. Against the machines. I was so focused on my anger and the turmoil in my head that I didn't really care where I was going. When I snapped out of it, the sun was shining. The village was far behind me, and I wasn't sure how I'd gotten there. Anya looked around. So, what's the plan? Stop the logging. I had to learn about my family. I needed to find someone. Anya looked around. There was someone I had to find and press for answers. Lisa's girlfriend. Lisa had said that her girlfriend could answer my questions. She was supposed to be here. I looked around. On my right was the ancient forest, on my left was the freshly torn clearing. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines with people arguing in their shadow. It was clear they needed an outside voice to settle things. The clearing of the machines. I looked at everyone. There were people there too. The loggers were sitting idly on the tree trunk sharing cigarettes. The police that stood between them and a colorful group of protesters were visibly uneasy and twitching. I saw some reporters who were clearly bored because no one was doing anything interesting. The harvesters loomed over the clearing, reeking. I saw a familiar face among the protesters. Lisa was standing next to Olga from the cemetery, who was arguing with a vaguely military-looking man in his 30s. The protesters were clearly conflicted. I wanted to know what it was all about. Maybe I could solve the conflict. I had business to do. The protesters were clearly conflicted. Curious about the reason for it all, I approached the protesters. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. I let Anya handle it. Anya flashed her best smile and flooded him with Norwegian. He smiled back. "Oh," he said, "you're one of them," and then let us go. Then I noticed that someone joined us. And then I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak with us past the police. A girl with disheveled, bleached-out hair. Don't worry, she patted the officer on the arm. It was an awful pickup line anyway. He recoiled. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am. I rolled my eyes. and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. Pat! Some guy called her from the gathering. Could you come here? I need you to show Olga that chart. She sighed, reaching to her backpack and taking out a tablet. And they're at it again, she murmured under her breath and looked at me. Coming! I went toward the activists. As I walked towards Lisa, I heard more and more of the argument. Olga, you can't! The man was speaking with a strong German accent. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. Do not fucking tell me what I can or can't do, Cornell. Olga interrupted. I can, because they are destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground. A slender, green-eyed man was standing near her. He took a few steps back, went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on us all, and pissed on the machine. Olga smirked. Aw, Daniel, you know how to bring the point home. He looked at her confused. Cornell raised his eyebrows. Burn the harvesters? Cornell asked calmly. Is this drought? Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can, because this is a fucking war. She spat. Sighed. You've never seen real war, and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us. Believe me. We want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. I approached Lisa. Hey, can we talk? I asked approaching Lisa. Oh, hi, Maia. Good to see you. Listen, we have a little dispute here. Maybe you'll be able to explain the problem to our friend. Oh, so I was taking a stand. I looked at them. I looked at them both, Olga with her fury and passion, Cornell with his cool professional demeanor, and shared without any reservations what I felt about the situation. There was a fine line to tread. Olga cautious, Cornell unfriendly. Lisa annoyed, Daniel cautious, Kim sympathetic, Pat sympathetic. I looked at there's a fine line to tread, I said in silence. You don't want the protesters to be painted as terrorists, and you don't want them to be treated as irrelevant and ignored. Kim shook her head and moved forward. I observed them curiously. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please, trust me on that one. They looked at her apologetically. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. Lisa decided to say something. Lisa looked at them straight in the eye. She had a peculiar accent. Kim, you want to teach me about violence? She looked them straight in the eye. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to that, one mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave Kim alone. He didn't know what to say, and it deemed that whole discussion could be derailed. I didn't let that happen. Olga neutral, Cornell cautious. Hey guys, the forest? I said the logging, the protest? Olga unclenched her fists. Cornell looked back at her and chuckled softly. You almost punched me. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked towards the reporters, while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadow of an old oak tree. I looked at the forest. Pushcha. I looked at the Pushcha. The clearing full of felled trees was like a gaping, bleeding wound in the chest of a friend. I had to do something. Stop the logging. I looked at my friend. We have to stop this logging. Yes, just like Olga said, Anya nodded excited. What they're doing is unforgivable and we have to fight. I looked at one group, I looked at the other. Harvesters were dripping with black oil, and the forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it protected itself. And I looked at the felled trees, dead, limp, hopeless. Cornell, diplomacy. Harvesters, answers. Let's go. Answers. No, wrong. As we approached, Daniel pricked his ears. I could have sworn they moved. Hello, fellow humans. He grinned at us. I felt Olga's eyes on me. She didn't seem to remember me at all. And who the fuck do you think you are? She demanded. She stood there with her arm wrapped around the waist of another woman. It was Lisa. She winked at me and mouthed, "It's okay." I didn't care about them. I wanted to act. I needed answers. What was the argument about? What was the argument about? I asked back. Olga didn't answer. We locked gazes. Lisa nudged her. See, honey? I told you it's obvious. I looked at them again. Olga rolled her eyes. I had more time to look at her now. She was wearing combat trousers, sandals, and there was a small silver double-bladed axe hanging on the string around her neck. The Labrys, a lesbian feminist symbol. She wasn't hiding where she stood. Back to the most important question. Why was she jumping? What was her plan? Do you really want to burn the harvesters? I asked. Well, the asshole was right. It's not an option in this drought. But yes, I want to destroy them and stop the logging by any means necessary. Are you ready to help us? Back to the most important question. What's going on here? I asked. Lisa said you could help me. Isn't it obvious? Her laugh was bitter. Your grandfather ran away and left his debt to the Pushcha unpaid. He was supposed to guard her. Since you're here, you can make it right. She seemed to believe it. Family left unpaid debts in the forest. I looked at her, skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. The question is, she looked at me as she paused, will you do it? Before I could answer, there was a commotion, a change of mood. Olga stiffened and looked over my head. The police were coming. The police were coming our way. The young guy in the uniform who let me through looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. Officers, Olga hissed, hissing the words through her teeth. Ma'am, said an officer whose round face was adorned with a mustache that looked like a shoe brush, disperse. But it wasn't easy to intimidate. Try to de-escalate. The voice of reason. I took a step back and looked at the bigger picture. Saw the cops, I watched the reporter, I looked at the protesters. Stood shoulder to shoulder with the other protesters as the officers started to push into us. I could see their faces covered in sweat under their helmets. I felt Olga looking at me. She caught my gaze and raised her eyebrow. I grabbed a megaphone. I grabbed a megaphone from the hands of a confused young man and jumped on a nearby tree stump. Audio feedback screeched and heads turned my way. I had one chance to take control of the situation. We should focus on what was important. We are all here for a reason, I began. The police have their orders, we want to save the forest, and the press need a good story. But we have to look at the big picture. Consider my next words carefully. We all understand how this works, I continued, considering my next words carefully. Escalating will only bring more problems. We will all be here for a long time. Let's take a step back. They looked at me. I could see the same look emerging on the faces of the officers and protesters. Their eyes narrowed, their jaws tightened. A journalist started to laugh. I felt someone grabbing me by the arm. Someone grabbed me by the arm. I wanted to yank my hand away, but the grip was strong. You better go now, said Olga. We'll take it from here. The ugly truth. When I was on the road to the village and nobody could see me, I stopped and screamed. I startled a flock of birds. A startled flock of birds took off from the trees nearby and filled the air with feathers and movement. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya from my sight. I was alone, or so I thought. Well, you had it coming, a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was looking at me. Said nothing. I was fine. It was too much. It was too much, I whispered, all of that. We walked slowly toward the village. We talked. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who had come here about a month ago. Her name was Erika. So why are you protesting the logging? She asked for a few minutes of small talk. For personal reasons, we had to save the Pushcha. I think the Pushcha is unique. When I saw how many trees they cut in just one afternoon, it broke my heart. I said, still shaken by the sheer number of the fallen trees. I have to do whatever I can to save the forest. I looked at her. And why are you asking? She looked at me with renewed interest. Do you know why they're cutting down the trees? She asked back. Because you do know that logging is done by a government company, the state forests. But why? Why are they doing this? I wasn't sure if I understood. Shouldn't the state forest take care that the forest was healthy? Erica reached for her notebook. It all started with spruce bark beetles. Erica looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year, the beetles' infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it and save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infested trees as fast as possible. Was cutting down trees necessary? Or was the logging legal? Couldn't they just remove the dead trees? Maybe if they removed the dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread? I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees are what make the forest unique. Erica smiled. There are 20 times more species living on a dead spruce tree than on an alive one. But was the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massive logging in a UNESCO-listed area might be illegal, Erica answered. Was it necessary? Is cutting down the trees the only way to stop the infestation? I asked, confused. The foresters say that this is the only way, she said. Some biologists argue that they are cutting the wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. Did they have to intervene at all? Could they just leave the pushcha alone and let nature take its course? I asked. That's one of the options, Erica admitted. But there's a drought, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. The situation was more complex than I thought, and Erica's answers did nothing to clear the picture. That's a very good example of, like, going to a protest and, like, you get swept up in it and stuff like that. That's kind of why I picked those answers, because that's very telling of, like, her, like, getting swept up in the moment and wanting to, like, get up on a tree stump and talk to anybody, and she has no idea what's going on. She just knows that they're cutting down trees. She doesn't know what's happening, why it's happening, what the real problem is, what the real issue is. And that's something that you have to do when you're going to a protest, is you have to know the facts. You have to know exactly why you're there. Because if you go there and you don't know and you're just kind of caught up in it, then you could be made to look like a fool, or you could actually do more damage for the cause than what you think. What was the truth? I tried to understand her point of view. Stop beating around the bush, please, I asked. I need to know the truth. I'm just doing my job, Erica shrugged. I describe all aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. How convenient. She was putting herself in such a convenient position. Unfortunately, I couldn't just pretend that it wasn't my business. At least I was sure that they were cutting down the trees and that the pushcha needed my help. And who controlled the narrative? Who controls the narrative about the logging? I asked Erica. All the public media explained why it is necessary and illegal, she answered. And that's why I want to help the protesters, I explained. They need to be heard. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. I'm just helping you make an informed choice. So what was right and what was wrong? So what should I do when I feel that something is wrong, I asked, exasperated. Do you believe that people can be evil? She asked back. We could do bad things, for sure. Some people do really shitty things, I shrugged. But is it just their actions or their nature? I said nothing. What's the matter, she asked. I admitted my helplessness. I felt so helpless when I saw all that. I took a deep breath, and then I remembered what Olga had told me. All that mystical stuff. And they said that I have some family debts to pay. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in, but there was that foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? She asked. How come she didn't smell it? You didn't smell it? The harvesters reeked of something, like meat that had been rotting in acid, only worse. I couldn't even find the words to describe it, but the memory of the foulness still clung to the back of my throat, swimming in my sinuses. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, as though she wanted to say something, and then thought better of it. You'll learn in your own time if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. Let it go. What did she mean? What do you mean? I asked, getting irritated. I just told you. You'll learn in time, or not at all, which would frankly be better. Anyway, gotta run. As I watched her leave, I thought that whatever was my family legacy had surely manifested itself that day. I guess I'd made some progress. I jumped right into the middle of a very tense situation, and at the very least upset the status quo. I just hoped I hadn't made things worse. I walked on in silence. Time to regroup. Anya came back soon after me. I lost sight of you, she said apologetically. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. So how was your day? Anya asked. I gave a public speech. I learned a lot. I met a lot of new people. I shrugged. I gave a public speech. I'm not sure how it went, but a lot of people listened. Anya looked at me with awe. You don't waste time, do you? I had to do something, I sighed. I met a lot of new people. I met some very interesting people, I said, so excited. Yeah, they look like a colorful bunch, Anya grinned. Maybe you can introduce me later? They sure are passionate. They argue between themselves more than they argue with the loggers, I added. I learned a lot. Did you know that the government supported the logging even when it was illegal? I shared my dismay. Anya just nodded silently. Yeah, I've read about it. Why didn't you tell me? Well, you have a lot going on, she shrugged. That's all I wanted to share. Shrugged. Just another day in the Biovesa. We sat for a while in silence. You know, there's more to see here than Biovesa, Anya said, more of her travel guide. Porgozeci, Buldi, Termiski, Zerlonka. There's something interesting in every village. So, Sherlonka is a village in the byways of the forest, built in the 19th century around the forest industry, now a tourist destination. Teramiski is a village. It's the location of an informal summer folk university. Budi is a village known for its open-air folk museum and copse of ancient oaks. Nice. Pogozelci is a Pogozelci, nice. Established in the 17th century, produced charcoal. Open air museum, some kind of folk university, the bison. Maybe you'd like to see something more about the logging. I couldn't see everything. It would be great if I could see everything, but I can't, I shrugged. I want to focus on the logging, even if I'm missing something else. And how's the search for your roots going? Anya couldn't stay for long, silent for long. I'd share what I'd learned. It seems that my ancestors lived around the forest for a long time, I said. There's some kind of debts to be repaid. Wow. Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think, but if you need something, just let me know. I was tired. I just sat there, looking through the window. The day had been full on, and I was exhausted. I didn't notice when I fell asleep. Ah, I love this art. I can do anything. It's quiet now, yet I know deep down inside that something isn't right. I run and keep walking. I sneak. I'm sneaking through the forest to the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape. Then the darkness starts to pour in. I know what I will see. And I see the bodies strewn across the ground, bloodied, maimed, their limbs torn from destroyed torsos. I can see some of them are still alive, still struggling for air, still trying to live. They are all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. I see movement in the darkness. I see shapes moving in the darkness. They have long skeletal arms. They're wrapped in glistening black intestines, and each of them has a wide gaping mandible full of wearing blades. They snap at me blindly. My friends stand by my side. Their eyes shine in the dark, and they are ready. They are angry, and I can feel their rage merge with mine. I don't have to say anything. I lead the charge. The howl, I lead. We clash with the shapes and start to destroy. We bite off heads and tear off arms. We are the stuff of legend. Then I wake up. Find out what's happening to you. I gasped and bolted upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep red light, the room looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow and duvet were on the ground, and I was sweating bullets. I looked at my legs. When did they become so hairy? I could have sworn I'd shaved them that morning. Chapter 3, Standoff. I need to talk. I thought about going back to sleep, but I couldn't. Since I'd arrived in this village, I felt like I was falling down a rabbit hole, or rather a wolf's den. My dreams were getting more and more vivid, and I was scared. I needed to talk it over with someone I trusted. Kim seemed okay. Anya was in it from the start. The problem was that I didn't trust anyone. Kim seemed okay. I thought about Kim. They have lots of experience. They seem to accept all the strange things that life throws at us. We definitely hit it off as well. The sun had just set and the moon wasn't up yet. I started walking. The forest loomed on the horizon. The activist camp was somewhere there. I soon ran into Anya. "Oh, Maia, good to see you," she said. "We need to talk." I was all ears. "I'm worried about you. Since we got here, you've looked distressed," she explained with a sigh. "I've asked around, and it seems you're associating with some dangerous people. They know things about my family," I answered, "and I need that information." She could come with me if she wanted. "I know you have your own things to do," I admitted, "but if you want, you can come with me." Anya smiled. "Sure, sister," and we walked together. All together now. The camp had a different vibe than the logging site protest. There were more people there. We looked around trying to take it all in. "They are coming and coming," Anya laughed, excited. That happens. The people in the campsite seemed quite cheerful. The smells were intriguing. I watched them for a moment. Someone was singing. I heard 3 or 4 girls singing together in a unique Eastern European style called the White Voice. It was the most melodic, throaty growling I'd ever heard. I listened for a moment. All my rage is gone. I stopped and just got lost in the music for a long while. People were milling about, setting up camp, cooking, preparing posters. Everyone was busy. I looked around. I definitely needed to talk to someone about what was going on, about what I felt. I saw Kim talking to Cornell. Olga was there as well. Hello, I said as I approached. Cornell smiled at me. Hello, he said. What brings you here? I was confused. I'm confused, I answered. Is it really true? I mean, all the stories of her connecting me in the forest? Cornell looked at me with those uncanny gray eyes. I could feel his attention lock on me. Yes, it's true, he said. That's why we're here. To stop the government destroying the forest. To show that we don't agree, that we hope to make a difference. And you have your role to play. Will it work? Will it work? I asked. I don't know. All I know is that it worked before. It worked for Gandhi. It worked with segregation and apartheid in the end. It worked with communism. So let's see if it works with capitalism as well. Violence is not that option here. He smiled. And I think you know quite well that anger doesn't really get shit done. Cornell, back to neutral. I suddenly felt uneasy. I've heard that phrase so many times, I said slowly. And you know what? I've seen anger getting shit done so many times. So maybe it's my turn to use it now. I'll see you around, I guess. It's time to talk to Olga. I turned around and walked toward the far corner of the camp where Olga was. Came there looking for Olga, and soon I spotted her. Well, hello again, she greeted me. I didn't expect to see you here so soon. Actually, she gave me a long hard look. I didn't expect to see you again at all. I joined the banter. Aren't you just a ray of fucking sunshine? I said with a broad smile. She said nothing, instead just watching me cautiously. What brings you here, kid? She asked after a beat. I was confused. I'm confused, I answered. Is it really true? I mean, the stories you told me about my past in the forest. There's nothing to be confused about, she shook her head. It's perfectly clear that the government will destroy this unique forest if someone doesn't stop them, and you have your obligation to fulfill. She broke off and bit her lip. What do you want to do about it? I wanted to smash things. I want to do something, I said. Anything. I want to feel like I'm doing something that has a meaning, that will change what happens. I feel like I could smash those harvesters with a hammer. Do you have a hammer? If I had a family debt to pay, I couldn't just be an observer anymore. She looked at me. Her eyes were a weird color. I might, she said, but I need your support, because Cornell will try to push his own agenda. They all wanted to do something that night, but after a whole day's discussion, they were still divided what to do. 3 for one option, 3 for the other. I saw no reason to back up Olga. Saw no reason to back up Olga. Let's go with Cornell. A little help from my friends. I voted for the peaceful protest, and soon we were on our way to the National Park headquarters and education center. We had some banners to install. Anya tagged along. This is so exciting, Anya whispered. I've never done anything so illegal. Soon we were there. As we were on our way, I realized that in reality, my methods were much more peaceful than my words had been. I shrugged. You live and you learn. The National Park headquarters were located in something called Palace Park. The name was historical. The name, like everything in Poland, was historical. Centuries ago, some king had his hunting lodge there, but now it was a mishmash of old and new buildings scattered around the park. Some were rough and bulky, made of stone and brick, while others were an extravaganza of wooden porches, laced like shutters, and meticulously sculptured pillars. There was no one around, but the area was well lit. I looked around. I looked around once more. The moon was waxing gibbous, and I didn't see any stars in the sky. If you didn't count us, the park seemed really empty. Dead, even. I suddenly remembered the church located just next to the Palace Park gate. I could feel its dark silhouette looming in the darkness, waiting. Suddenly I started having second thoughts. I looked at our makeshift sign sewn together from what looked like old sheets, and the big, dark green letters that declared, "Wood is the enemy of the forest." How would it change anything? Where do we hang it? Asked Daniel, who'd come equipped with climbing gear. I shared my recommendations. I think we should attach it to the drain pipes there and there and point at 2 corners of the building, and Daniel grunted in agreement. It doesn't matter, Olga said, because hanging the banner is a waste of time. I looked at her, curious what kind of advice she could offer us. I asked her for advice. So what would we do better next time? I asked her for her advice. We can vote for a plan that has a chance to actually help the forest, Olga rolled her eyes. It's a great banner, and I'm sure it'll look good on the pictures published by a number of independent political blogs. She looked at Cornell. But it's stuck so deep into the overeducated ecological dispute that people won't get it, and the loggers won't care. Cornell just shook his head and gestured Daniel to continue. I waited patiently. Soon the sign was up, screaming our message to all of Biovesa. Cornell looked at me. Maia, what do you think? I didn't get that slogan. I don't even get that slogan, I admit. Cornell looked surprised. Nobody told you? It's from a famous book about the Pucha. Humans let the forest grow so they could take the wood from it. But that isn't the purpose of the forest, and when done on a huge scale, it's actually devastating. Finally, we pulled the banner up. It's an important message. Anya looked up with fire in her eyes. The world must know. I looked at the banner. I was proud of our work. When we finished, Cornell gathered us together. I was proud of what we accomplished, and I contributed to that. Whatever my family had done, I was starting to pay back the debt. Cornell reached for his bicycle. Let's go for a trip, he said, to remind ourselves what we're trying to protect. Gunshots in the wood. Push Juz, sympathetic. The woods were full of stars. We cycled in silence, enjoying the company of the forest as it enjoyed ours. At some point, a clearing opened up before us. It was surrounded by boulders placed in a circle. It looked relaxed. A soft breeze rustled in the trees, welcoming us. I was tense. I was starting to have second thoughts. Something was telling me this was not a good night to be out in the forest. When I took a deep breath, I felt a wave of strange energy filling my body, harmonious and bright. I was wondering if anyone else felt it as well. Do you guys feel that? I looked at my companions, but before anyone could answer, a loud sound tore through the silence. It was a gunshot. Anya gasped, looked around wide-eyed and terrified. The others tensed up, but they didn't look concerned, just confused. Who's there? Cornell shouted. There was a rustle, and I saw a bunch of men in camo, each of them with a rifle coming toward us between the trees. I observed them. I watched their angry steps and listened to the murmured curses. Suddenly I noticed Bartek was with them. He winced when he saw me. Their leader weighed us up for a moment and finally focused on Cornell. This area is closed for the night, the huntsman said in Polish. There was contempt in the voice. There's a hunt going on, and y'all are trespassing. We have police officers here, so I'd go home if I were you, unless you want to get arrested. This was a pile of hot bullshit. This guy reeked of guilt. A hunt? Bastards. I tried to de-escalate. I turned to the forest for advice. Which judge, sympathetic. This man, I realized, was no one. He wasn't important here. What was important was the forest and what it needed, and it cared about me and didn't want me to get hurt. There would be other nights and other people to fight, but right then I felt that it wanted me to leave. I ran, my arms shielding my face, my skin slick with sweat, and the darkness thick around me. I was holding Anya's hand as we pushed blindly through the night. Something was chasing us. We left the shouts and gunshots long behind us, but we couldn't stop. Something was chasing us. Two silhouettes, one lean, the other bulky. I saw them in the corner of my eyes as they leaped forward. At first I thought they were people, but as they leaped they got longer, smaller. I couldn't see clearly. It was dark and sweat was blinding me. They were hiding behind the trees. I heard howling and growling, then I saw there were wolves chasing us. I tried to hide. I tried to run faster. I decided to face them. I stopped in the middle of the path and turned to face the animals. I had no chance of outrunning them anyway. What are you doing? Whispered Anya. Terrified, I ignored her. I looked at the wolves. They looked at me. They weren't normal animals. I felt strangely connected to them. We're the same, I realized with shock. You and I. The wolves dispersed and then something happened. Something that I couldn't see clearly. And two people stepped out of the bushes. I knew both of them. Olga? Cornell? We will be if you survive, Olga growled and lunged at me. I closed my eyes. There was a series of wet cracks, like skin breaking, torn from within by muscles that suddenly grew, by bones rapidly getting longer, by fur and teeth and claws. When I dared to look, I saw two 8-feet-tall monsters standing in front of me on the narrow path of the forest. Fuck. I managed to whisper, and then there was only pain. Bloody murder. The pain was unbearable. Nothing in my life had prepared me for this. I tried to stop the bleeding. Blinded by the blood in my eyes, I tried to assess the damage. My shoulder and chest burned. The flesh felt wrong and slippery under my fumbling fingers. Blood was pumping out through broken skin and alarming late. I realized it was too late. I stumbled. It was too late. The forest caught my fall with a bed of moss and twigs. I stopped thrashing and a cold numbness engulfed me. No, I tried to get up. I punched the earth trying to get some feeling in my hands. I gritted my teeth and I tried to get up. I collapsed again. I felt so cold. Suddenly there was light. I looked up. The full moon. It looked different. Impaired health. Luna in her full glory. Your health dropped to 0. When you lose all your health or willpower, you become impaired. This will make physical tasks if you have 0 or social mental tasks if you have 0 willpower harder and sometimes impossible. The moon was a goddess and she noticed me. Get up, she said. I got up. I got up. I feel good. I knew that I shouldn't, but I don't remember why. I don't care. I stretch. My muscles are sore and cramped, so I stretch like I've never stretched before. My arms are longer, my legs are longer. My heart is pumping and I feel like I've spent my whole life packed into a box. I've finally been set free. My mind is clear. My mind is clearer than it's ever been before. I see the world in a sharp contrast of black and white movement and stillness. I smell prey. I hear language in the hooting of owls, the whistling of the wind, the snarling of wolves. I am what I was born to be. I breathe. I am. I take a breath. I feel my ribs and muscles move. The forest smells of blood and fear and excitement. I'm happy. I laugh happily and others' laughter joins me. We laugh and sing to the moon. Something stings me. I look around. There's a small malformed creature pointing a stick at me. The stick blazes with fire and there's another sting. The creature is no threat to me, but its presence is annoying. Its smell almost sent me reeling, and I don't like being pricked. I stick my hand in it. I reach out and stick my fingers in the creature's belly. When I pull my hand back, there are strings attached to it. The creature pulls the strings and dances like a marionette. For a moment, it's funny. Then I lose interest. My ears prick and I hear more creatures running blindly through the bushes. I feel better. My leg no longer stings, and I feel better than ever before. This is a dream. Maybe it's a dream? I think as I move silently through the undergrowth. The creatures are running away. Their backs turn to me. A growl escapes from between my teeth, and one of them turns my way. It challenges me. I roar. The creature falls down and curls into a ball. It smells of ammonia. Piercing light burns my eyes. I hear more creatures coming my way. They want to hurt me. I strike them one by one. I hide in the shadows and they are too slow, too dumb, too clueless to notice me. I strike them down one by one. Some fight back. Some manage to defend themselves briefly, but most of them don't see me coming. A new smell. The wind brings a new smell. The air tastes of fur and musk and blood. Shapes move among the trees, but they are no creatures. They are people like me. Suddenly I'm surrounded by them. I think I know them. They seem familiar. It's like I met them in the past, but they were hidden. They close in on me. What do they want? Wait. I relax and wait for them, unflinching. They approach me and sniff the air. Their smells are overwhelmingly familiar. Once the people had sounds attached to them, but now I realize the sounds are not their true names. Run with us, they say. I howl with joy. We howl with joy and everything that hears us trembles with fear. Then we run through the forest and through the night. I get lost in the moment and pay no attention to the others. I'm alone in the heart of the forest. I look up and see no moon, only clouds and tangled branches. Something changes. Something changed. I realized how tired I was. I stumbled. Darkness. The night sky was full of stars. I opened my eyes. Confused, I opened my eyes. The forest around me was thick and dark. The tree trunks, wrapped tightly in dark-leaved ivy, were covered in ripples of lichen, and where there was vines had taken a hold. The thorny, leafless bushes at their base were overrun with nettles. The fungi radiated with a ghoulish, sickly green light. Dark, sponge-like mushrooms grew into the fallen trees. It was cold. I knew it was summer, but I felt cold. Where were my clothes? I looked down and saw my hands covered in a dark substance. I was naked. A sticky, glistening film of liquid was clinging to my skin. I could feel on my face and my hair. Blood. Whose blood was this? Had I killed someone? I knew what was coming. I remembered my dream and slowly lifted my eyes. There was a severed head right in front of me. I felt sick. The face was contorted, the eyes bulging, the mouth open, the tongue stung out. It was obscene. I doubled over, retching. I recognized that face. Oh God, I recognized that face. It was Anya. Her braids covered with dried blood. The head washed me with reproach. I screamed. No! I let out a long, blood-curdling scream. Then I swallowed it. The bushes rustled, and a moment later I saw Cornell coming out from between the trees. He looked at me, at the head, at my face. He came closer and squatted beside me. This is what we were trying to tell you, his gray eyes smiled. See? You're a werewolf. I looked at him, I blinked. Everything faded to black. Chapter 4, Lost in the Woods. Breed, Homid, Auspice Unknown, Rank Cub, and then Tribe Unknown. So, we got halfway through. There's 6 chapters to this. We're about 55% through with the game. So I'm going to go ahead and call this part right here, but I will be back later with a part 2. So just stick around. It should come up next in the playlist. But I'm very, 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 very excited. I've got some thoughts, and you can see my full thoughts in my review video. But my thoughts so far of this: love the artwork. Like I've said before, the artwork is amazing. The music, the sound design, all that stuff is great. The writing is phenomenal. Representation is great. Fucking the choices are great. I killed somebody that was my best friend apparently here. Well, not best friend, but was like very loyal to me. So that's pretty heartbreaking. Let me go ahead and swatch back over to here. Please do consider checking out this game. Check out Walkabout Games. You can follow them on their website, which is walkabout.games. You can check them on Facebook, which is facebook.com/walkaboutgames/. Then there's twitter.com/walkabout_games as well. And you can check out this game right now at the time of this recording. It's not available, but it's available now. You can find it on Steam and GOG.com. Please do go purchase it. Go give it a shot. There's so many different ways. As you can see, the story is branching, especially compared to the demo run that I had. Things are completely different. Not how I expected it in the slightest. I can't wait to play through this game more. I'm probably going to play through it on stream as well. So yes. So please do consider following, giving a like to the video, subscribing, checking out the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Carrying Comfort Studios, and consider hitting the bell for notifications here. I do appreciate it. And get in the comments, tell me what you think about this game so far. Tell me about things that you would have done differently, things that I should have done differently, and let's start a discussion about it. And I cannot wait to see you guys till the next video. So I hope you have a great rest of your day. And do not forget, comfort comes soon. Bye.